My name is 𝗲𝗂𝗄𝗴. I'm a solution engineer at Leapwork. So in that role, I cover not only the Benelux, but also the Nordics regions and the DACH regions. And we're mainly focusing on enterprise customers for testing, visual testing. And a lot of that testing is dynamics because, well, there is a huge demand for it at this time. So also the topic for today. Prepared a small agenda that we're going to walk through today. If there are questions, feel free to break in, ask them. We have some room for questions at the end as well. But this is what I've prepared. So basic introduction, couple of minutes, few slides about Leapwork so that everyone knows what it is, what we do different than other tooling, then what we see in the market. So how most companies are starting with testing, what they're encountering during the rollout process of after go live, and what are the best practices in there. Bit of demonstration, a framework that we've built that will help accelerate customers to get value out of testing sooner and at least get a stable set up and working. And then there is room for questions or next steps or whatever comes up. So first introduction, Leapwork. We're 500 more enterprise customers, 10 customers or 10 countries that we have offices in. And Leapwork was founded a couple of years ago. One of our founders was working at a huge bank, Selenium frameworks, really difficult to learn, a lot of time to upskill new people, difficult to keep people. And he wanted a solution that was easier to learn, easier to maintain, and for more people than just people who know how to code. So that was the start of Leapwork. And what we see with all of our enterprise customers is that a lot of things changed in the last years. So companies are moving to cloud, to SaaS solutions. All of those big enterprises have many different systems. They have ERP systems, they have CRM systems, website, HR systems, and they're all connected. And what changed a lot, at least that's what our customers are telling us, is that they're no longer in full control when they're going to roll out something. And so there are fixed deadlines, integrations between different applications. So even if there are like 4 release moments for one applications, since they are connected, you get those other 4 releases for that other applications in there. And before you know it, you have 16 or 20 release moments that are connected to each other. So they are starting to rethink their strategy of testing. So for everyone that doesn't know Leapwork yet, a very simple flow, just to explain how it works. So Leapwork is a visual tool. Looks a bit like Microsoft Visio or business process management tool. Building blocks in there. So you have a first block to start it, a block to start a web browser with a URL. Probably you want to data drive that flow with an Excel sheet or maybe a database. So the green lines are connecting the blocks, the blue lines are putting data in there. And we have the purple blocks, those are reusable components. So that reusable component is taking the data feed out of the Excel sheet, driving more cases than just one, typing some text, getting some text from a screen. Every good test case, of course, has a validation in there. So that could be a comparison or a logical block or an AI block that validates if the output is what it should be. And then the flow is passed or failed. And there are always 2 things that we deliver at the end of a test case. It's a video, so that we have an exact proof what was done, where, with what data. So if you need to be compliant, you can do so. And of course, there's a log file with the status of each block and the timings in there. But the big advantage is that everyone, also the people who cannot read or write code, should at least be able to understand what's going on in a flow like this. Then we looked at the regression test sets of most of our customers. And for Dynamics F&O, There are usually between 300 and 500 test cases in their different scenarios. And what most customers were complaining about was it takes us more time to maintain our existing test flows than it would take to sometimes manually test it. And so maintenance is quite important. So we heavily rely on reusable components. So a login, we build it once and then we use it in every second flow. And the second pattern that we see in all of those test cases is you log in and you navigate to something, you do something, maybe check in a different system if the data is actually getting there. And all of those steps are repeatable. So the more of those generic building blocks you're getting, the faster you can build. And because it's only built once, you only need to maintain it once. You can drive it with data. By checking in another system, you're no longer testing just applications, but you're testing end-to-end processes. So implicitly, you're also like testing the APIs that are between applications, the data, the security, the databases, the networks. And of course, you can do that with not only the happy flow, but you can do that with different variants, maybe different users with different roles and privileges, different quantities, different warehouses, and dynamically check on those success criteria. So a lot of Dynamics customers, kind of triggered by Microsoft themselves, they also realized that testing shifted with the one version policy, that people have a different risk than when they can determine their rollout moment by themselves and delay it. And when we looked at all those customers, there were like 3-4 categories that we can identify. So the customers that went live and didn't have any problems, and those were the ones that probably didn't want to talk to us because they were happy everything was working. But there were also a lot that went live and they ended up in hypercare, chasing bugs for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, not being able to deliver the new functionalities that were on the planning, maybe just completed their blueprint and needed to roll it out in 50 different countries or sites. So those were urgently looking at something that could deliver value fast and get a grip of quality again. Second category that we found was customers that were in migration. So they were somewhere halfway. So we had a customer that had 2,000 test cases, tested it, found out that things while they were implementing the rollout were changing. So it worked when they tested it, the second time it failed. So they weren't really sure about the quality and they were quite hesitant to bring it live. And then the last category that we found was just starting. They looked at testing and quality pretty early on. And from that category, we got questions like, when is the right moment to start with testing? Do we start really early on? Does it need to be stable? What is your best strategy to do it? And the good thing about that last category is that you have some time to get automation in place, to get procedures in place, and that you don't have to do it in the last minute. So if you look at the implementation process, and there are many different ones out there, but you roughly see about these steps in all of them. So setting up a project, then you start working on that blueprint rollout. Most companies start concerning about testing somewhere near here, which is pretty late. So if you need to do something, change something, there's not a lot of time to do it. And if an UAT fails, there's a large project team, sometimes 20, 30 people, who you have on the payroll, who you need to pay, and 3 months delay of a project of an F&O implementation is of course extremely costly. So all of those CEOs in those situations said, look, I wish I had that conversation a little bit earlier on, because if we started over here, we would have enough time to do it properly. And so we see a large shift going to the left. Other ingredient that we saw is an F&O has a lot of similarities, of course. While our professional services team was building test flows for customers, they built the same thing over and over again. Because everyone wants to create a new customer or a new supplier or create a sales order. So those end-to-end processes, everyone wants to test them, and they give you a pretty basic coverage that at least the standard processes in F&O are working correctly. And if you're going to deploy that release, whether it's for UAT or if it's for a real deployment, the basic stuff is going to work. And then on top of that, of course, you need to test your customizations and your integration. So most of the time there is a little bit more to do with that needs to be built. And if you want to do that, of course, you need to make it configurable, because this will work really nicely on a sandbox. But I know of one F&O implementation that hasn't been customized so far. All of the rest are. So it needs to be easy to adapt it and to change it and to keep it working. Other component is, of course, keeping track of what's happening. And for some reason, almost every customer wants to build their own custom dashboard. We have, of course, dashboards in Leapwork as well. But when to combine different data sets, log files, network security, together with the test cases and have a general overview. So we provide it as well. Give you the insight, what section is working correctly, where did you need to focus on, what needs more attention, where are the bugs, where are the issues, what's the quality of each separate component. This was pretty quickly. If you want to learn more on Leapwork, there are loads of things that are also on our website, Leapwork events, webinars, you can find them on the website. There are demos, custom demos that you can ask for if you want to see more, and I'll show you something later on. If it really makes sense and you think, okay, we need to talk, you can also contact me directly on my email, or, well, addresses are out there. You probably know how to find me. So let's switch to a bit of demo and the framework itself so that you can see how we accelerate the implementation, or at least the first implementation for our customers. So this is Leapwork. It's like a big blank canvas. It looks like a 𝗕𝗕 flow, the green starting block, like it was in the slides. And what you can do in here is you can just use a recorder to make a pretty simple flow. So you go to the start menu. Then there are recorders for web and desktop, also for SAP or for green screen or for mobile. Logical blocks to do comparisons, AI blocks, all those things that are in there, and the subflows to reusable components. And the easiest way to get something done is to just use a recorder. So you go over here. It's a web browser. I paste the URL of my sandbox. Press start, and then the command is executed. So we chose to only record what's absolutely necessary. Also because we want to be sure that we don't put extra information in that workflow, because we need to maintain it as well. And so then every element of that website is being scanned. So I need to put in my email address or my user address. So I can do type web text. So type in my user name. Apply it. As soon as I hit apply, you see it being filled. So then you know it's recorded correctly. Click on the button. So the first option in here is click. Then you go to the password screen. If you want to stop halfway there, you can always stop, save the flow, and then you see those steps are breaking down into those building blocks that you can use to automate the process. You can also start it again with just maintaining. It's just getting to this last block, starting the recorder again, putting in the password, choosing it's a password field, apply, click sign in. Click yes. And then maybe you want to check that you're actually being logged in with the correct user. So we go over here to the top section. I can click on this and build in a validation or a screen in here if we want to do that. So click web element, apply, and then get that email address out of the screen. So pretty standard, simple flow. Build it in 1 or 2 minutes, save it. Need to validate that the text is actually correct. So I go to the logic section in here, put in a compare block, I take the text that I found from the screen, copy this one here, and the flow is passed. So that's my first simple flow. You can teach everyone this in minutes. So not months learning, it's hours learning. Some steps that you probably need to do with every automation tool. You need to delay the flow to the same pace as your sandbox. Sandboxes are slow, applications are not fast enough all the times. So we've been built in some functionality to let the flow wait till the pages are fully loaded, so that we're not clicking on buttons that are not there or are not working there correctly. Let's give it a try, see if it works, or we need to modify something. So I can press run, and then that flow will be executed, and it will generate 2 things. You have the flow. The second thing is the video that we'll put in there, so that if you want to send it to the developer that needs to fix something, he has all the information. And the other thing is the log file that we create. All of those 3 things are synchronized, and we can work with that. Okay, so it says flow is successful. If I restart the video over here, you will see an orange square around the blocks. You see the log file stepping in the same pace as the video. And so it's quite easy to determine if something goes wrong, where it was wrong, and what you need to correct. Now you don't want to build this every time, of course. Login is in all of those 300 flows. You definitely don't want to maintain it every time. So what we can do is we can generate 1 subflow out of those blocks. So select all the blocks, create a subflow, log in, FO demo, I will call it. Oh. Save. Now you have 1 generic purple block that you can use in every one of your flows and add in there. Because if I log info demo, if I want to add that building block, I can just log info. And there you have the section with all the building blocks that you can use. If I want to edit this flow, I can go into that flow. I can make it more dynamic by using input values. So value input. And maybe I want to use this login for my tests, my QA, my acceptance, my prod environment. So I will need a URL, I will need a username, and I will need a password. And these are just data parameters feeding it in, so that URL I can connect to this blue dot over here. The username will be over here. And the password I can connect to the password block. Now when I save this flow and I will go back to the main flow, it has now 3 parameters on the screen. And I can just link the password to the password field. I can retype the username and fill it in here. And I can paste my URL in this URL field. So now I've built a generic component, which is also reusable, driving it with parameters. I can do it with an Excel sheet. And that's basically the principle how we keep down maintenance and how we increase the reuse of functionality. Now in the frameworks we went a couple of steps further. So we have built frameworks for Dynamics F&O, but also for CE. And you need to make those frameworks configurable. So the first thing that you need to do, of course, is set up the testing environment. So you see in here things like the URL, the username, the password, what kind of browser you want to use. But in every section of the test cases, you also see, for example, order to cash, that you need to fill in specific details just for the order to cash processes. So what will be your customer group? What will be your site? What will be your warehouse? And so we have that centrally managed in one place. So once we are with a new customer, we're setting up that configuration. We're using their products, we're using their items, we're setting that in. And then we can go to the next steps that are in there. And we build utilities, building blocks for every visual element that's available in F&O. So common utilities, things like logging in or logging out. If I go to this process that I build over here, I can just drag and drop those components in here. And now I have a login block, I have a logout block available. And we have modules in the system. And if I go to sales and marketing, I have a block for creating a new customer, standard out of the box. You have validation utilities, where we can validate everything that will be on the screen. We have action utilities with things like unique name generators, because a lot of the process needs unique input. So you might as well generate something with a unique name or a unique number. And those are those blocks that are in there. So by having this toolkit available for our services team, but also the certified partners can use it with their implementation, they are able to build a lot faster and deliver results much easier with less effort, and at least get you or your customers to a standard testing set really fast. Then the last component that I wanted to show are some sample test flows that we built for all of the processes that are in there. And a sample process is creating a customer, for example. So same kind of building blocks. So starting, launching the application, starting up F&O. Then you have the navigation blocks in here. So sales and marketing page, go to all customers, generate a unique name for that customer, create a new customer block with the parameters that are being filled in. Press the save button, wait until the system is fully loaded, fully done, and check if everything is created correctly. Verify if the new object exists, and then log out for the next test case. This is really easy to set up, really easy to configure, and within minimal time you have a flow that will run for that customer, testing a basic process. And that feedback is quite valuable, at least that we get back from our customers, also during the implementation phase. Because if you start running this during the implementation, you get feedback all the time if everything is still working. And if something got broken along the way, you know what just changed. So it's easier to fix it. And that fixes up the process, make sure that you have at least a UAT environment with the basic functionality working, and that your core processes after releasing in production will also work. About a half hour in, so we're just about time. I think we can switch to questions if there are.
I think maybe one question I have, and I think the answer will be yes, probably, but you can feed those parameters probably with more data than just one, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So the system is made for enterprises. So whether you want to use APIs, if you want to use a database as ODBC connections or just a CSV Excel file, all of that is supported. What we also see is that a lot of the customers want to go a couple of steps further. So close the loop a little bit. If something is being checked in, it's being deployed, automatically a set of test cases will be triggered. And then if it's successful, then you can deploy to the next environment. I haven't met any customers yet that fully bring it to production that way, but technically it's possible to do so because flows can be connected together after each other with logic. You have a set of test cases that will run, and if everything is positive, everything is on green, you can proceed with the next step.
I see there's another question from Maxime. Is there functionality to automate MFA?
Yes, and it's always a nice discussion because are you testing MFA on a test environment, yes or no? We have built in a building block, and it's called MFA. So that building block can use T2P authentication. So you need to set up a secret, and that secret generates a code just as you would do on your laptop or on your mobile phone. And with that, we can automatically log in. I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense in a testing environment with dummy data, but if you are using production data in your test site, well, sometimes in the more regulated environments, you cannot get around it. And then it's a standard process to set it up and to use the MFA. What you can also do is things like single sign-on or connect it to your Active Directory and then use the privileges and the roles with that. That's another way that we see customers working.
Yes.
Maybe one small question about the pricing. How does the pricing model works? Is it number of concurrent users or?
Yeah, the pricing model is pretty predictable. So there are two ingredients in there. The first is the number of users. So it's not concurrent users, but it's named users. Yeah, that's ingredient one. So everyone that needs to build a test flow or it needs to maintain a test flow needs a license. You don't need a license to trigger a test flow. That can be just from a trigger or a system. And then the second ingredient is the number of agents, what we call. And agents are the robots that are executing the test flows. So that's capacity based. So if a flow takes 5 minutes to run, you can run 12 flows in an hour times 24 times 7. And then you run out of capacity on your agent and you need a second agent. It's commodity hardware, horizontal scalable, so low specs, and you just plant another agent in there, and then you can run in parallel if your flows allow you to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Clear.
Yeah, and that's also some of the discussions with customers. How fast do you need your results? So if you have 300 test cases, do they all need to be ready in an hour, in a night, in a day, in a week? That will determine how much agent capacity you will need.
Yes. Great. Another question in the chat. The demo was focused on Dynamics 365, but which other technologies are supported? Mobile, desktop, API, and can you combine all of them together in one end-to-end test flow?
Yep. Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's the power of the project. So we've seen flows with customers that have an e-commerce site where you order a product, then it goes into your CRM system, it goes into your ERP system, your warehouse system, and eventually we check on a PDF, which is desktop, if the right invoice amount, if the right discount is being put on there or on a pick list. So you can test all of those processes in one flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just selecting the other blocks, because if I want to start using desktop, I can go to my desktop recorder over here, and then I can open my file explorer and just click on the element, apply. Save the flow. Mm-hmm. Now you have a gray element, the other ones, the web elements were orange, and it will open a desktop element, or it will open a PDF, and you can vary with it. So it's quite easy to shift also. So if you have like CE and F&O connected, you can go over there, create a contact, and then look if there is an integration, if it's also visible in F&O after a certain time.
Mm-hmm. So those Dynamics 365 blocks you have there, or framework, is it standard delivered with a license, or is it something separate you need to buy?
Yeah, so our standard implementation process is when we onboard a new customer, and we make sure that either a certified partner or our own professional services teams co-creates the first set of flows with them. Just to make sure that you are thinking in those reusable components, that you keep the maintenance down, but also to transfer some knowledge and expertise building the first flows together. This is the standard that they will bring, that you can start with. We have them, we're constantly developing them, so it's a work in progress, it's never finished, like everything in testing. But we have also customers that use a similar approach to automate different applications. Because if you look at the structure, nothing is keeping you from doing that from, I don't know, an HR system that you want to test. Building those reusable building blocks, setting up the navigation, the validation, the standard test flows, and then making sure the quality is there.
Okay, clear. So if there's no more questions, I'm sure you will find us when there are questions later on, either through us or directly to Bas or Genevieve. Of course, thank you very much. It's very nice to have people show us their tool from their expertise.
I guess the big goal is just get people up and running faster. If it takes you a year to get to a basic test set, you get into discussions like, what's my return on investment? Is it worth the effort? Should I actually do this? And with this, you so much accelerate the implementation that you get into a whole different discussion. Yes, correctly. That was it for today. Thank you so much again, Bas and Genevieve, for your time. And yeah, see you next time, everyone. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.